How is everyone doing? Welcome back to another episode of The Banker Next Door. I am your host, Dr. Joe Berquist. Today we are continuing the crypto series with part 23, and I have a very interesting article from the Wall Street Journal that I wanted to go over with everyone here today, and I'm going to bring this up. So this is called Crypto Billionaire Accused of Defrauding Creditors, Propelling Industry's 2022 Collapse. Now, as I started reading this article, so this is about Barry Silbert, and we're going to read about Barry's company, Genesis Capital, obviously went down in a blaze of glory in 2022. But Barry was also involved in a number of other things. He had the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. He had Grayscale Investments. There was a number of different companies that he operated, and he was one of the, kind of first crypto moguls, if you will. We just saw in the episode last week, I reported how the founder of Celsius just got sentenced to 12 years in prison for fraud. Obviously, SBF obviously him in prison for the blow up and the fraud of FTX. So this gentleman is not facing jail time. Barry Silbert's not facing jail time, but he's being sued by creditors for fraud. And what is fascinating about this is that this case could rewrite the whole history of what we now know to be called the crypto winter of 2022, or as I just call it, the crypto collapse of 2022, basically the utter implosion of the crypto markets. Now, what we're going to see here in a minute as we get into this, so the general thought is that there were a couple of stable coins, TerraUSD and the Luna coins, that basically imploded in May of 2022, and that basically was the kickoff and led to the string of company collapses throughout the summer of 2022. So you had BlockFi, Voyager, Celsius, Gemini, Genesis. You had 17 crypto firms basically collapsed, which led to the culmination of the collapse of FTX in late October, early November of 2022. And so that was kind of that's been the general theory or the general thought, or again, so we thought, as we'll see as we get into this article here, what really happened and what really may have caused the trigger or started that whole collapse in 2022. So let's get into this for a second here. So creditors' lawsuits allege the crypto winter began earlier than believed, and with actions by Digital Currency Group's founder, Barry Silbert. So Digital Currency Group, again, another one of the companies that he founded. So in the depths of the brutal 2022 meltdown in the digital assets market, billionaire crypto entrepreneur Barry Silbert had a message for investors like Mark Cuban, who were worried about getting wiped out. Stay calm. Your money is safe. We're solid. His own actions didn't show the same confidence, according to new filings and lawsuits filed by creditors of Silbert's now bankrupt lending business, Genesis Capital. That April, Silbert demanded repayment of more than $100 million in loans that he and the companies he controlled had made to Genesis, according to the creditors, who are alleging a wide-ranging fraud. The call started one day after Silbert received a dire warning of a market crash from consulting firm Oliver Wyman, they allege. Silbert was one of crypto market's first moguls. He founded in 2015 his Digital Currency Group, built a large venture capital portfolio, launched an asset manager that oversaw crypto funds, which was called Grayscale Investments, and through Genesis lent to other investors. Now, this could get very confusing real quick. So we had this company called Digital. I just lost it. Let's go back. Digital Currency Group. So he had Digital Currency Group, venture capital, and then basically basically started this Grayscale Investments, started this other company, Genesis, that was, and again, all this stuff was kind of moving the funds and monies, just moving around through all these different companies. So creditors allege that Silbert ran his companies with lax controls and misrepresented the depth of their financial problems so he could personally profit. That kind of sounds familiar, right? Maybe a little SBF-ish right there. They also said Silbert His closest executives and his brother Alan withdrew millions of dollars in loans while telling investors to keep their money on the platform. His actions, they argued, led to Genesis's failure. Silbert and his cronies recklessly operated, exploited, and then bankrupted Genesis following a spectacular campaign of fraud and self-dealing, wrote the creditors, who represent the bankrupt Genesis Capital and its Asian Pacific arm. The 202-page filing made public Monday in Delaware Chancery Court as part of an ongoing proceedings in a case the creditors brought last year and particularly redacted, with internal messages and other company details kept out of the public eye. More information may be unredacted in the coming weeks. This is a baseless lawsuit that recycles the same tired 2-year-old claims in an opportunistic attempt by sophisticated investors to extract additional value from DCG. A DCG spokeswoman said in a statement, "We worked in good faith with a wide range of stakeholders to try to achieve a comprehensive resolution of the DCG-related aspects of the Genesis bankruptcy. We will vigorously defend ourselves against these spurious claims." Now, the filings rewrite the history of the 2022 crypto winter, a volatile period that culminated in the collapse of SBF's FTX. According to the creditors, the trouble started in 2021, more than a year ahead of the market-wide sell-off, when DCJ's Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, a fund that held Bitcoin, started to trade at a discount to the digital currency. The slide pushed Genesis into technical insolvency and eventually helped trigger the crypto market's ferocious downturn, the creditor said. Throughout 2022, Silbert, his companies, and his business associates bled the lender of more than $800 million in more than 140 transactions, the creditor said. The creditors are seeking $2.3 billion in Delaware Chancery and Manhattan federal bankruptcy courts and want to be paid in digital currencies that may continue to rise. DCG has previously settled with the Securities and Exchange Commission for its oversight of its lender, but has been at odds with Genesis over a settlement facilitated by the New York Attorney General's office that would return $2 billion to customers who lent the platform money. The DCG has denied wrongdoing in the continuing civil fraud suit against DCG filed by the Attorney General's office. The crypto market's 2022 collapse erased some $2 trillion in paper holdings. At the time, many investors believed that the problem started in that May when two cryptocurrency tokens, the TerraUSD stablecoin and the Luna token, lost about $60 billion. Basically, they collapsed. The creditors argue that the seeds of the sell-off were first sown much earlier, in about February of 2021, when crypto markets were still on a bull run, but the Grayscale fund was starting a years-long decline. So in early 21, Grayscale Bitcoin Trust was one of the few vehicles that enabled investors to buy access to Bitcoin without owning the digital currency itself, but it charged a high fee, 2% on its assets it managed. This subjected new investors to a 6-month lockup period before they could sell. Genesis was then still a behemoth too. That year, it originated $130 billion in loans to crypto investors, a nearly 7-fold increase from the year before. So again, what was the collateral for that $130 billion in loans? Oh, well, it was cryptocurrencies it was holding, or perhaps it was the stablecoin. But it was not hard collateral. It wasn't real collateral. It was all just, again, and this is where the fraud comes in. And this is because, again, they lent money on things that again, this is part of the problem with cryptocurrency. What is its real value? Does it really have real value? You make all these loans against the cryptocurrency as your collateral, and it all goes poof, 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 up in a smoke, in the smoke of air. Poof. Gone. Okay. A nearly 7-fold increase from the year before. In 2021, the single largest holder of Grayscale Bitcoin Trust was Three Arrows Capital, the filing claims. Now, Three Arrows went down in a blaze of glory. That was another big failure that year. So the creditors say the hedge fund took advantage of the market distortions created by the lockup period, which had helped keep the Grayscale fund's market value floating above the value of all the Bitcoins it owned. By February 2021, Grayscale Bitcoin Trust no longer traded at a premium. Nevertheless, Genesis encouraged Three Arrows to pledge its Grayscale Bitcoin Trust holdings to borrow more. So in other words, here we go. Now we're just pledging their holdings in cryptocurrency or their holdings of stablecoin for more borrowing. So you're just digging the hole deeper and deeper. Even as the fund's price continued to slide, the creditors allege a representative for Three Arrows Capital couldn't immediately be reached for comment. As the trust premium disintegrated to a discount, DCG pushed Genesis to mismark the value of the fund when it was used as collateral, the creditors claim. DCG also forbade the lender from selling or hedging Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. The trust collapse left Three Arrows underwater, but the hedge fund was still allowed to use its trust holdings as collateral to borrow even more from Genesis, according to the filings. The hedge fund would become one of the largest holders of TerraUSD and Luna, which were quickly becoming popular. In April of that year, Oliver Wyman shared with Silbert and DCG a report that portended the market meltdown, offering a series of scenarios of the turmoil that would follow if some of the company's largest trading partners went bankrupt and the ripple effects across the broader crypto market. DCG, the consultant, wrote, was likely unprepared. Silbert's response to the consultant's warnings came just one day later when he called $4 million in loans he made to Genesis, the creditors allege. And in the days that followed, DCG and the international subsidiary demanded Genesis repay another $125 million. In the months that followed, Oliver Wyman's report would prove prescient. Genesis, as the world would soon learn, had the most exposure to Three Arrows Capital. After Three Arrows collapsed in June of 2022, Genesis had a $1.1 billion hole in its balance sheet. This also set off a race to keep the company afloat by the end of the month. When crypto prices began to fall sharply, DCG told its own clients not to pull their money, according to the creditors. These requests convinced two of its largest customers, the exchange Bitviveo and Gemini, not to pull more than $3 billion. A Genesis executive told Cuban, the Shark Tank star who was then an owner of the Dallas Mavericks, that the lender was facing no liquidity issues. According to the new allegations, Cuban said he had nothing to add regarding the filing. First, I've heard of it, he said in an email. Silbert would send a message internally that the hole in Genesis equity due to the Three Arrows exposure is something we will need to fill by 6:30, according to the filings. The creditors allege that amid this collapse, DCG turned to its investment bank, Ducera Partners, for help, and the firm soon helped put together a $1.1 billion promissory note that was due in 10 years at a 1% interest rate. Wow, that is amazingly, that's a man, who wouldn't take that? $1.1 billion for 10 years at 1%. The bank, which is named as a defendant, clearly understood that the June 30th balance sheet was materially false and misleading the creditor's claim. Representatives for Oliver Wyman didn't immediately return requests for comment. So again, fascinating article that basically changes what we knew to be a lot of the narrative around what was going on here. So Digital Currency Group and Grayscale Investments and the Grayscale Bitcoin the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, these were all apparently at the heart of what was going on there, obviously pushing the TerraUSD stablecoin, which was the largest stablecoin in the world at that particular moment. And TerraUSD was hot, super hot, scorching hot. And but again, it was the lending. It was this whole decentralized finance, this whole lending ecosystem that had gotten established around, so it basically turned into a giant, not quite a Ponzi scheme, but just a giant fraud, just a giant fraud where it was basically like things of no value were being lent, and the pile on just continued. The lending just kept flowing. The collateralization of these assets that were worth absolutely nothing. And then once the market collapse was on, once the panic set in, that was it, man. It just ran. So again, fascinating thing here. Obviously, a lot more to come with this. I think we're going to find out a lot more as this lawsuit continues. But again, and I would tell people, if you have not watched the first four episodes of this crypto series that I put together, go back and watch those episodes, because I explain the history of all of this. I have one, I kind of explain the history of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, how it started in '08 and how it basically developed, going through its first iteration up until 2015, and then 2015 through 2021. And then I get into, and that's like the first two episodes. And then episode 3 is basically the crypto collapse of 2022. And then episode 4 is the crypto collapse or not the crypto, episode 4 is the banking crisis of 2023 with the failure of Silicon Valley Bank, a Signature Bank, and Silvergate Bank. And I talk about my theory of the case is that basically the failure in the crypto market led directly to the banking crisis that occurred in the early parts of 2023. So, but if you haven't seen those episodes, go check them out. I think you'll find them very interesting. This adds a whole new wrinkle to that, and obviously a lot more to come. So we will keep an eye on it, and I will report to you guys as we find out more. So, but that being said, I will wrap up by saying, if you like this episode, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, as that always helps the channel. Remember, we are on YouTube, Rumble, and all major podcast platforms. Please be sure to leave your comments down below, as I always love getting back to everybody. And as always, please check out some of the other content on the channel. Check out some of the other episodes of the crypto series. And with that, I say thank you for listening. I will see everybody again real soon. Have a great day out there.